And no, on another note, during my childhood visits to Israel, there was so much at which I would marvel. The street names written in the language of our prayer books, the beauty and diversity of the Israeli people, the fearlessness of the country as a whole. But there was another sight by which I was struck, and it was the sight of the amputees. Seeing them for the first time nearly 40 years ago, these somewhat older men, bereft of their arms or legs, sometimes with rudimentary prosthetics and sometimes not, were an image wholly unfamiliar to me. When I asked my mother about them, she responded with a considered reply, that these were the war wounded of this great country and its endless battle for survival. That these were, in a word, the Israelis. I imagine many of you at home might recall seeing similar images. And it may also resonate with you when I say that between my childhood and my adulthood, such sights became ever more rare, as those older men gradually became elderly or moved on from this world. And as Israel's wars, not missions or operations, but wars, seemed to be a feature of the past. Until now, that is. Now, in an October 7th reality, that demographic has returned to our midst. With some changes, to be sure. The prosthetics, for example, have been modernized, and those wearing them are now men and women alike. But most jarring among those changes is the fact that the amputees are no longer older than me, but far, far younger. And my mother was right. These are the Israelis, maimed in a war foisted upon us by our enemies. And when I talk to these heroes, they tell me that they are the fortunate ones, for they remain possessed of the gift of life. That sentiment of gratitude invokes yet another demographic, one about which I want to talk to you today. I'm referring to the fallen soldiers of this war. It's a societal oddity, but both here and in the diaspora, most everyone rightly discusses the hostages or the ultra-Orthodox draft, or of when and why the Prime Minister did or did not take responsibility for the October 7th massacre, or of how all of this could have possibly happened to us to begin with. But rarely do we speak of those who died for this country, and yet there are hundreds of them. There are many hundreds of them. Since that terrible day, some 924 IDF soldiers and some 70 police officers have been killed. And I believe that it is incumbent upon you and me alike to always remember their sacrifice. And we must do so far more prominently than is currently the case. We must do so not only for those who fell, but also for those by whom they are survived. We must do so for the widows and the widowers. We must do so for the orphans. And we must do so because in world courts and international organizations, on social media, in traditional media, and on campuses throughout the globe, our enemies are hard at work sullying the memories of our defenders. The battle for their good name is ours to wage and to win, and we must not shirk our place on its lines. So put your armor on. Continue to educate yourselves so that you might educate others. You, all of you, are needed. And with that, turning now to my childhood in England, I recall that each year as we solemnly mourned the heroes of Britain's wars, we silently listened to the poem, The Epitaph. It depicts a dying British soldier's beseechment to his surviving comrade, who is soon to return to England. And therein, the dying soldier entreats him thus, quote, "When you go home, tell them of us and say that for their tomorrow, we gave our today." And now, as you wonder what future God will bestow upon this great country of ours, and it will be a glorious future, in the name of those fallen soldiers of Israel, I ask of you, wherever this day may take you, whether to your colleagues, to your communities, or to your families, when you go home, speak of our fallen soldiers and say that for our tomorrow, they gave their today. Because they did. And they did so by their many hundreds. Theirs is the sacrifice that has enabled us all, whether we be whole or harmed, to ply the tomorrow of this land. May they have done so for the sake of a glorious future.